Please put your hands together and join me in welcoming to the stage Caroline McCall! And keep it going for Joanna Lynch! Up next we have Lee Wiseman, the wisest man we know. Next up, Tim Lewis. He's finally getting his chance to come out. Can keep that going for Ellie Murphy. Hi, friends. Welcome to MCM.
Thank you.
So can we very politely go down the line, tell us your name, your title, and for all the normal people, what does that mean? What do you do day to day for House of the Dragon?
I am Caroline McCall. I am the costume designer of Series 2 of House of the Dragon, and I am responsible for the design of all the characters' costumes, all the extras, SA costumes, the armor, yeah, all the humans, basically. I'm responsible for how they look and how they look every day on set.
I'm Joanna Lynch. I assist Caroline. I'm the costume supervisor. So I'm responsible for helping Caroline achieve everything that she wants to design-wise and making sure it's all in the right place at the right time.
I'm Tim Lewis. I'm the weapons master, and I basically design and manufacture all the weapons for House of Dragon.
I'm Ellie Murphy. I'm action prop supervisor. I take care of all scripted, unscripted, background, and hero props.
I'm Lee Wiseman. I'm the prop master. I head up the prop department. We look after every prop in the show.
And Lee, you also worked on Game of Thrones.
That's correct.
True or false? Sorry, sound guy, there's a lot of microphones on stage. How did you deal with taking the design and aesthetic for Game of Thrones and bringing it over into House of the Dragon so it was the same but different?
Well, although obviously I had an advantage having worked on Thrones, that process really starts even long before I come on board with our producers, the showrunner, production designer, set decorator. They all are setting the tone for this before I start. Once I come on board, we run with that, but we also are working with all the other creative teams to make sure we've got one language, everything fits, reflects a Game of Thrones heritage, but has its own style and voice.
So for everybody who's not Lee, what's the pressure like when you come on to House of the Dragon after Game of Thrones wins every single award humanly possible?
Well, I think when you get offered the job and you're like, oh, we've got to live up to Game of Thrones, and you've really got to, you know, what's it going to look like? So you think, oh, shall I just go through the whole of Game of Thrones and try and pick out all the styles and everything like that? And you just go, at some point, you just got to kind of go with what you want to do and put your own input into it. So yeah, you take a bit of Game of Thrones, but you've also got to put yourself into whatever the design you're doing. I don't know if that is the same way you guys looked at it, but that's how I went.
I think you really have to honor the script and the characters, and that's where you have to come from. And I think that once you're in the production, you don't think about the scale of it. You just think about the day-to-day and doing your best work.
So speaking of the day-to-day, we have a lot of people here who do a lot of things that don't necessarily seem complementary. So how do you all work together and sort of integrate as a team to make sure that House of Dragon comes out as amazingly as possible?
We work really, really closely. I mean, we talk on a daily basis. There's not really a fitting that happens that Ellie or Tim aren't involved in. Stylistically, we'll talk with Lee on what action props and props they're going to be surrounded by to make sure they look like they're all part of one world. And also the set decorating department as well, to make sure that we don't have an actress in a costume that's made of the same fabric as the curtains, which is always a possibility. So we talk daily, and we really liaise and keep the dialogue going all the time.
Caroline, I would love to ask, because we're lucky enough to have some of your costumes here from the second season.
Could you give us a sense of how you got these particular costumes for these two characters, like from the idea phase to design to fruition?
Well, both of these costumes feature in the trailer, but not necessarily in the context for which they were designed. But,
Go on.
No.
but they show the sort of direction that I've taken the Targaryen Hightower family and Rhaenyra's family that have moved to Dragonstone. So Aegon is desperate to be taken seriously as the king, so he is in all his royal finery. And the aesthetic in King's Landing is much more naturalistic in terms of the embroidery and surface decoration. And what I wanted to do, what I lent into from what Jani designed in Series 1 were the traditional Targaryen clothing. So I love the Dragon Keepers, I love the wedding attire, and I wanted Rhaenyra and her family to feel that they were leaning into their Targaryen culture, the old Valyrian culture. So this has more of a feeling of, it's not crossover, but it's got that feeling of that. And the aesthetic is, the dragon aesthetic is different to Aegon's dragon aesthetic. And we've lent into sort of textured scale-like fabrics for Rhaenyra's side of the family.
It seems like you're also maybe drawing inspiration from the way we see the dragon's eggs over here, because the scale that we see on the dragon's eggs is something that really sets it apart from other dragon's eggs and other franchises. Oh, I just want to ask so many spoilers, and I'm just not going to, but I want to. I understand how everybody's feeling. The rivalry between green and black is a theme that we see from Fire and Blood carried all the way through the show. Is that something that carries over into design work? Are green and black always the two colors that everybody's going toward?
It was more interesting to me to look at them from their family point of view, and not just the greens and the blacks, but all the different houses that we then encounter in this series to try and lean into their aesthetic.
Tim, as an armorer, you've got a foot in the world of design and props. So how do we strike a balance between practical and stylish?
Well, I mean, when you're talking about practicality, I think if you look back through history, weapons have been made for thousands and thousands of years. And so if you're designing a sword, you can't do better than look back historically. That they were made to do a job, but also they were representative of the characters who own them. And so for me, it's really important to look through reference material. I'm constantly trawling through books and go to museums and all sorts, just trying to sort of suck up information about historically what weapons are out there, what swords look like, what things, and then just sort of jumbling that all together and then using that to create what we create.
Are there specific time periods that you're pulling your design from?
No, I mean, it really depends what you're looking at. For something like House of the Dragon, you don't want to go too far, too near to now. So I would probably, might stop at late 16th century, that sort of thing. But you can look at different sort of ethnic weapons from around the world and try and pull bits from there. But yeah, I mean, it's a medieval show. Yeah. It's a lot of medieval weapons, and yeah, I think that's how I try and balance that kind of practicality over look.
So when we were standing backstage waiting for this panel to begin, you said, "Do you want me to talk about the different types of swords? Maybe I'll swing a sword around." So. Do you want to talk about and maybe swing some of the incredible props that we have?
How wrong can this go?
Exactly. Yeah.
So if I get up, over here we've got Blackfyre. So this is our replica of Blackfyre, and this is made of aluminium. and it's thicker than the original sword, which is over there. I can't point. And basically, we manufactured this as a thicker blade so that we can mold it, and then from that we can make a rubber version. This doesn't like to sit in here, so hang on. Oh no! Do you know what? I'm going to put it on the floor.
See, we said how wrong could this possibly go?
And this is the rubber version, and because it's got a carbon fiber inner, it needs to be a certain thickness, otherwise it will be all wangy and floppy, and when they fight with it, it will look weird and wangy. So there's a lot of stiffness in that, so that when they hit each other, like I said, to do that, we have to make the blades thicker. But over here, sorry, everybody, stay with me. Hang on.
Cue Benny Hill theme here.
This is the original, and this was made from stainless steel Damascus by expert sword maker Peter Johnson, who is a god of sword making. And he made one of these, and then we took all of those components, and this is real silver, real gilding, real Damascus, and that's something you wouldn't usually see on a sword on a TV production or film or anything like that. So because of Ryan's sort of love of weapons, that's why we went to those extents to make this, and Dark Sister as well. Now, I don't actually have the original Dark Sister here, but you can see on the stand over there, that's our replica of Dark Sister. So yeah, I won't swing that one around. I think you've seen enough of that.
So of the 3 versions of the different types of swords that we've seen, which one are you most likely to strap to an actor for a 14-hour day of filming?
It may surprise you, but actors can be temperamental, and
Never.
It's often best to put the lightest possible weapon on them. I'm like, day one, they're like, yeah, put the big one on, put that, and then they're like, this is getting a bit heavy. Tomorrow, can we have the rubber one? And I'm like, yeah, you can have the rubber one. It's fine. So yeah, 90% of the time, they've got the rubber one on.
I look forward to your memoir 25 years from now, when the story of who said that to you comes out.
There's a long list.
That's actually perfect for my follow-up question for Joanna, which is how do you make armor look realistic but also practical for filming? So is there a concern that practicality trumps comfort, that somebody looks best on camera, and how long does it take to produce some of the armor that we see?
That's quite a few questions in one, but if we start with the design. So it always begins with Caroline's design and what she wants to see, and that is really what we try and hold true to. We have an amazing armor supervisor called Simon Brindle who sculpts and creates the armor, and he is a genius and works tirelessly to make it as comfortable as possible for the actors. There are always going to be things that are difficult and uncomfortable to wear that we will, once it's manufactured, try as hard as we can to get them to where they need to go to. But it's really restrictive. We live in a society now where most people wear tracksuits and comfortable clothing and trainers all day. And putting on a suit of armor, albeit not made in metal, is extremely restrictive. And people do struggle to wear it. Not everyone, but a lot of people do. So all our armor, once we've done the original sculpt, is made in polyurethane or leather. And that makes it lightweight and practical for filming, because they would never survive a day filming in either aluminium armor, which was what was used 20 years ago, 30 years ago, or steel armor. They just would never get onto set. So it's all made in polyurethane, which is much more comfortable for them. And from the initial design stage, once we have approval from Ryan and the directors and the showrunners, we begin the sculpt, or Simon begins the sculpt, and it's usually around 20 weeks, which is mind-boggling.
Wow.
From that first design to the actor walking out in a final set of armor. But it's not just Simon's work. Once Simon is finished, we then need to fit it and make sure that it works and it's practical. it needs to go to stunts because most of the time that they are wearing the armor, they need to make sure they can do whatever the sequence requires. And then quite often in armor, lots of things happen to them, and it then goes to breakdown, who will add a beautiful patina and texture to the armor to make what is essentially plastic look like metal. And they do an incredible job all the way from the beginning stage to the end to make you believe that they are wearing metal armor.
So Ellie, action props supervisor. I presume that means you're wearing a full suit of armor at all times?
Only if Joe lets me.
Ooh.
She's the boss of that. No, action prop supervisor, I read the scripts, break them down, find all the scripted and, more importantly, the unscripted props.
What is an unscripted prop?
So an unscripted prop can be like two actors are going through talking about like maybe a war or something, and you need to give them something to play with to work on that, like markers on a table, even though like it's not a map table or something like that. Like for instance, the kiln was never scripted. It was one.
Really?
No, the kiln wasn't scripted.
My brain in half.
All of the eggs were being transported either like in a cloth to keep it warm, or in another way somebody would be attempting to keep it warm, because eggs, you know, in Game of Thrones, Daenerys reawakened them in the fire. So in our world, we always want the eggs to stay warm. So I pitched to Ryan that these could maybe be carried around in a hot metal container. Yeah, and so that's an unscripted prop. It's a gap in the story where a prop belongs, because no one writer could possibly think of every single thing that anybody ever holds.
Yeah.
and doesn't have the time to list that. So I would go to each director and say, here, this is what I planned for that scene. Do you agree or disagree?
And he says, yes, we'll build the kiln.
Yeah, so my first meeting with Ryan and the showrunners, season one's showrunners, that was my first prop that I spoke to them about. I was like, I can see a gap here. Would you like me to, you know, assess this and go forward with it? And they subsequently scripted it.
Is the kiln heavy, and will you lift it for us?
If Lee will help me.
Will you lift the kiln
I'm in. Yeah, I'm in.
right now?
Why not?
Do it. This was a question, by the way, that I submitted as a joke and got approval, so I'm gonna make you lift the kiln. All of the nice backstage things that are... We need a big cheer when they do it.
Do it.
And yay, we put it down safely. Thank you for indulging my absolute nonsense, because it looks very, very heavy. I have an important follow-up question also about the dragon's egg. How much for me to take it off stage after the panel and then take it home?
My career.
Oh.
I've got people circling the area making sure you don't.
Ooh, well, it's pretty dark in here, so you very well could.
I do also keep a list on my phone of people who've asked that question and then submit that to Ryan regularly so they can go on a watch list.
Oh, so now I'm never, ever going to get on that set. Ruined it for myself. If it hasn't been set up, nice friends who are running this room, can we get the microphone set up and then encourage people to very calmly and very politely queue up if they have any questions? I don't know if anyone received that, but I'm hoping that it's going to happen in the next couple minutes. Hi, Tim.
Hello?
We've waited a very long time to talk to you. How's it going? Are you doing okay?
Yeah, magnificent.
Thank you for lifting that giant kiln for me.
Say that again?
It really just made my entire day. Of everything that we have on the stage today, what is your favorite and why?
Ellie. So
Shucks.
she makes my life much easier than it would be without her.
Okay, I want to dig into that. What's the day-to-day working relationship between the two of you?
So because I head up the whole prop team, we're not only dealing with the action props, we're helping the set decorator with dressing the sets and a ton of logistics and things that go on around that. Ellie is an absolutely brilliant action prop supervisor, and so she takes that design, she runs that side of things brilliantly. We're talking together every day and discussing what's happening and how it's working, but she's constantly dealing with all of the other creative departments. She's going to the producers, she's speaking with the directors, offering up the ideas that she's got. She makes my life easier. So yeah, everything on this stage, it's Ellie. I will say my wife's in the audience, and off stage, you know, obviously.
Of everything that you have created for the House of the Dragon, what's your favorite and why?
A great question. The thing I've created for House of the Dragon is my team, actually. So I've got a big team.
You're too nice.
It's true. It's true. You know, that creative, everything is about the creativity of this. To do that, we need people that can design. We need people that can make, modify, paint, all of these things. That's really what it is.
Yeah.
You know, my part of the job is to make sure that all of those things come together and all of the people we need are there and doing their jobs. But that's really the most important part, really, is that we've got all of those creative people that can do it. Honestly, you see the model makers and the painters and the chippies. Without them, you're not going to do it. It doesn't matter.
I thought you were going to say like the dragon's egg or a cat's paw or something like that. Did we get the microphone set up? Hey! Okay, so if anybody, can we see our nice friend back there in the spotlight? So beautiful. So if you do have a question, please queue up there, but be very nice so that we can get it to everybody. Hi, will you tell us what your name is, where are you from, and what is your question?
Well, I'm not far from where they filmed House of the Dragon,
Nice.
near Surrey. So my question is, how long does it take to do exquisite outfits like you've done with Aegon and Rhaenyra?
Hello.
There we are.
Back up. Each outfit is very different, but one like these has got weeks and weeks of embroidery on it. We have a team of 3 up to 5 or 6 embroiderers working around the clock to do it. So it really is an impossible question to answer, but it's weeks, if not months, from the first fitting. We always do what's called a toile fitting, which is when we try it in a calico and in a base fabric, and we see the shape, we see if it works, and then we go from there. But weeks and months.
These 2 costumes I designed really early on, so they were on mood boards for a really long time. And then that all has to fit within the schedule of when it's actually going to be shot. So it's quite a juggling act in order to, realize things that I know are going to be so much detail. And, with working so exclusively in lots of greens, in particular, most things were dyed from scratch. So it's a lot, you have to allow time for that. And with most people needing repeats because of things that they're doing, that's a lot of fabric to be dyed.
Yeah, a lot of fabric to be dyed and a lot of work. And, Caroline and I, it's lovely that we're here and we sit here, but we represent a department of, up to its highest point on House of the Dragon, we had 150 people working in costume alone. And they're all creatives as well, and they want it to look as beautiful as possible. So when it gets handed to someone and we're talking about it, it's often you are removing it from them, being like, it has to go to set now. They will keep it till the last minute. Just one more, if I add a bit more, I could do this. It will, however long you have is how long it takes. And we take every minute we get given, because on a show like this that shoots so fast and furious, we have to grab it when we can. So they will all have been having beads stitched into them or something painted onto them 5 minutes before they were being shot on.
I just think it's absolutely beautiful that you've put some fire on his whole outfit. That is a great contribution.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for giving us some beautiful outfits, and there's a lot of cosplayers that I've noticed trying to copy, which is, even theirs are brilliant. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, what is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
Hello, I'm Siri. I'm from France, and I have a question. When you design armors, how do you create the undergarments? Does that happen within the process of the designing, or do you think about first the armor and then the undergarments?
Good question, but it's almost like osmosis, because when you've done so much research, I know automatically kind of the style of the gambeson is going to be, and the movement that's required within the gambeson, and the trousers, and all the elements that are underneath the armor. And I like to create costumes that if an actor has to strip off, everything can be seen, and so it allows an actor the freedom to say, well, in this scene, I would have taken my armor off, or I'd have taken my gambeson off, or whatever. So, and I'm very pleased that you've asked that question, because there are some really beautiful gambesons, which are the undergarment under the armor in season 2, that I'm really pleased with.
Ooh.
And you get to see them, which is nice. You'll get to see lots more of the under the armor, which is great.
So when you see that, get on all your social media and say, we heard about this from the people who made it at MCM. Can you believe how stunning they are? Thank you so much for your question.
Thank you so much. Have a good day.
You too. Hi, what is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
Hi, I'm Aya. I live in London, and kind of for all of you, I know this isn't really a concern anymore, but for all of the filmmakers on a budget and perhaps cosplayers, do you have any tips on how and where to save money?
We just always ask for more money.
And they always say yes.
no.
They
They
don't,
don't
always
always
say
say yes.
They don't
They do
always
not
say
always.
yes.
So what do you do when they
I guess
don't
it's a
say
case of
yes?
addressing how many repeats of a prop you need versus how much money that's going to take, and then that might be taken into account into the filming process when it comes to filming. But in terms of saving money, there's a lot you can do with cheaper fabrics and make them look really, really beautiful. That comes in to like the cushions that I might make that carry a crown, but also I'm sure it affects costume as well.
Yes, there's definitely, you can use much cheaper fabric. I'd say trying to go for natural fabrics, because if you're making things in more synthetic for cosplay, whatever, that can show up if they're too shiny, they don't look too real. But I'd say good cutting and making can make even the simplest fabrics look beautiful.
And also, if you're trying to recreate things, you can get inspiration everywhere. Try and reuse what you can. So much is disposable fashion, and people are buying things on Amazon. And the costumes that I've seen here today are amazing. The skill set that you guys have is incredible. And it's so brilliant to see that lives on. And that's where filmmaking starts, is the people who are making headdresses in their houses and doing little bits at home, and that's where it begins. And so try and reuse what you can, what you have in the house, and go to charity shops, because they're brilliant and they're cheap, and you can then alter something that already exists and make it brilliant.
Thank you. Hi, what is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
Hi, my name is Lucy and I'm from Barnsley up north. My question is, what's the process like in sourcing like fabrics and sequins and beads and all those things that like are very intricate, and like things like chains and things like that. How do you go about sourcing that and like using it, if you know what I mean?
Can I first say, amazing.
Come and show us your dress afterwards. It's unbelievable.
Thank you so much.
We're fortunate enough to have buyers who specialize in knowing where everything, to find all manner of things. And if they don't know, they will soon find out because that is their job on role on the production. So I'm very fortunate. And you build up contacts yourself. You build up, you know where to source certain things. But we're also been really fortunate on this season that we've made a lot of elements and designed for ourselves. And we've had the facility to do that. But yeah, Etsy even.
Yeah, we search everywhere, high and low. And we have, as Caroline said, an amazing team of buyers and junior buyers and PAs, and we'll be on the internet. We search through things. We look through things through cosplay sites. We get inspiration everywhere. But it's a career. Being a costume buyer is a career, and it's a really, really important job. And they liaise so closely with Caroline and the design team, because without them, their feet on the ground, running around, we would be sitting in an office in Watford with not much things around us. So it's a really important job.
So thank you very much. You are all very inspiring, and what you do is amazing. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hiya, what is your name, where are you from, and what is your question?
Hello, my name's Sam, and I'm from Manchester. So I'd like to commend you all for your work on House of Dragon. It's insane. Thank you so much. Basically, my question spawns from a personal experience. I visited Northern Ireland a few years ago, and where they filmed Winterfell, and they had some of the old props, like one of the thrones and the overcoats, and they sort of like, you could do an axe throwing archery day, and one of the guys who runs the National Heritage Site was an extra. So he was telling us stories about when they filmed, and probably questions for all of you, but also Tim, like what do you decide to leave behind, and what as you know comes back to what goes into the the ecosystem so it can be used and enjoyed, and what do you decide to say keep for yourself, or it's too precious, or you have an attachment to?
Well, we don't actually keep anything for ourselves. Basically, everything that we manufacture becomes an asset to House of the Dragons HBO, and it goes back into the system, and it basically gets put in archives, basically. And if you have ever watched Indiana Jones, and at the end when there's like the big building full of crates, basically that's what happens to all of the stuff that we make. Some of it gets taken out and shown every now and then every season it sort of gets opened back up, and we kind of look through it all and go, well, we'll use that, we can use this, we can alter that, or whatever. And then, but not specifically House of Dragons, but like you're referring to Game of Thrones. Once a show has come to its end, then at that point, I've literally just come back from the Game of Thrones archives, which is now shutting down, and a lot of that is about to come on the market in auctions. So keep your eyes.
Don't tell them.
So there is a point where things just then go back into the ecosystem, as you say. And it's funny, you will go around prop houses and you'll go, I made that 10 years ago. That's really, what? Why is it here?
Then you steal it back.
Well,
you claim it as your own.
Yeah.
There's a particular box made on a job I did at the beginning of my career that I've seen on every job I've been on.
Wait, really?
Yeah, there was a box made on the Guy Ritchie King Arthur that has been on every job I've been on, and I used it on the last season, like as a hero box in somewhere, so you can see if you can spot that.
But that's because you always hire it, Ellie.
No,
That's
it's
why
not
it turns
hired.
up on every job.
On her final job, she's going to steal it and take it home, because it's all over from that point on. That's going to be your box. Thank you so much for your question.
Thanks so much.
Hi, what is your name, where are you from, and what is your question?
Hello. My name's Ollie. I'm from Canterbury. Well, first of all, So I don't mean to repeat myself, but you're all absolutely insane. And
You're right, we are.
I worship you all so much. I'm actually making that exact Aegon costume at the moment. So seeing it, I nearly hyperventilated when I walked in and saw it in person. From the trailers and the promo pictures from season 2, we've seen a lot of the Team Black costumes like Baelor and Rhaena. I can't help but notice a similarity to Daenerys at the end of like season 7, season 8. When it came to designing, was there a lot of looking back at Game of Thrones and trying to connect that family lineage at all?
Well, more in that I wanted that maybe in retrospect that Daenerys had been trying to hang on to their heritage and lineage by some of the techniques and things that were in her costumes. So yes, I've used elements that I've decided are the kind of Targaryen aesthetic because I wanted to feel like that the Targaryens were from Old Valyria, and it's like one of the ancient cultures, you know, the Romans, the Egyptians, and try and lean into that. And so there are embroidery techniques, there are certain fabrics and things that are similar to things that Daenerys wore, but also leaning into what Jani did with her wedding robes and dragon keepers and whatever that kind of Targaryen aesthetic is what I was sort of going for, trying to establish, you know, a really strong Targaryen black aesthetic and silhouette so that it's very different. So the silhouette that we move to is very different to what we've got at King's Landing, so they're really setting themselves apart. Is that Jacaerys you're wearing?
It's supposed to be. If I'd known I was seeing you, I wouldn't have attempted it, but...
Looks very good.
It's fantastic.
Perfect. Thank you, guys.
Thank you. Hi, what is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
Hi, my name's Lily. I'm from the UK.
Be more specific.
Okay, Berkshire.
Thank you.
Just to echo what everyone has said, I think we all just want to tell you thank you for creating such beautiful pieces. You and your teams, it just makes the world so much richer and more beautiful, and it gives us so much inspiration. My question is, we don't always get to see all of the prop, all of the costume necessarily. Are there any Easter eggs or your favorite parts to make and do that you could tell us about?
Or if there's something on stage that you can point to that's a detail that you really want people to pay attention to, maybe?
I mean, if we made the belt over there that goes on that costume, and on the scabbard is some amazing detail, and you will never see that, I guarantee you. Partly because it's black, and it's really hard for the black bits to pick up, but just the amount of detail, the amount of time it takes to do that detail, I think it helps the whole look, but it helps the actor get into character to put that detail in. I think, and there's that's just one element. I think there are so many elements of the things that we do that you will never see on camera, and sometimes it's painful because you just go, God, these people put so much effort into that, and you can't see it. But as maker, you kind of have to let it go and just kind of go, yeah, all right, you're making it, and it's fine. You know, it is what it is. But hopefully the directors also and everyone pick up on it and try and feature some elements, and that does happen as well. They go, oh my God, that is amazing, and they will go, but they can't do it for everything, because sometimes you just feel like you're just making a documentary on how everything was made, and that's like completely, who wants to watch that? Well,
I think a lot of people want to watch that, actually, if HBO's listening.
We cover a lot of houses in this series, And it's all the finer detail. And so Tim is in every principal fitting that requires any type of weapon. And I mean, we talk at length about what's appropriate for which house. And so the devil's in the detail, really.
I had a detail that I don't think ever got seen in season 1 that I think about a lot. Daemon's Stepstone's crown, the idea of it was always that it was made of pieces that you would find on the battlefield, but also that they handed it over to him with some scrimshaw detail along it that I don't think you can catch on camera because it never got that much of a close-up. But the scrimshaw represents Caraxes chasing people around the battlefield.
That's so cool. Everyone's going to go home now and be like, pause, 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 zoom, 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 zoom.
I have a similar one that was really hard. When we did season 1, we had 2 costumes for young Alicent. It was played by Emily Carey. One, which is a seduction dress of Viserys, which you do see, but so fleetingly. And I think she's carrying a book. Look at me staring at the props. In front of her, and she's covering this amazing Devore dress that took hours in this beautiful deep green. And it's the first time you see her really in her Hightower green. And it's so fleetingly on camera, and it's covered by a book.
It's your fault.
I can't let it go.
Ask for a really big book.
It was not enough. It was not that a good a book to hide the dress. And it was so upsetting for you. But like you said, you have to let it go. And then the other one, which was a real kicker, was also for young Alicent, we shot her getting ready for her wedding scene to Viserys. And it never made it into the final cut. And she has this amazing wedding dress with hours and hours of work that Jani designed on it, and a team of 15 to 20 people made. And it sits in a box. And I know it exists, but no one gets to see it. You just have to let it go.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Hi, what is your name, where are you from, and what is your question?
Hi, I'm Max, and I'm from London. My question was that with producers, actors, and directors, are they involved with the design choices? And if so, has an actor or director or producer ever made a drastic change to the original designs?
I can tell you now that Ryan is very interested in everything that I make. He absolutely loves it and is obsessed by it. And for me, that's really good because I have one person I need to go to get things signed off, and that's the showrunner. So I'm very lucky in that sense. I think from the other guy's point of view, and probably, a lot of people have a lot of input into the designs of things, and sometimes that can become confusing. But it's really important. I think. I don't know. Is there real addition?
No, we're really lucky that it's Ryan is sort of the go-to person, and I feel really fortunate that nothing really was changed from the ideas that I presented. But in terms of actors, it's a collaboration, and they've got to feel that they are the character when they put the costume on. Because my tagline is always, if it looks like a costume, then you've not done your job, because it's clothes. It's the clothes that they should be wearing, and the actors have been so collaborative and really good fun, and we've had a right laugh in our fittings. So it's really lovely, actually.
It's always really interesting because I get to go to the fittings and I get to watch that process, and I kind of come along at the end and stick a belt on with a sword, and it's like,
it's a bit more than that.
We also have to test the costumes in terms of their physical movement and what they're going to be able to do with whatever sword or weapon that they have. Yeah. So that's all part of the process as well. And the fitting room can get a bit physical. And there's a lot of space. It's
amazing to watch the actors sort of have that collaboration with the costume department, and just kind of there is always a two-way conversation to make a costume work. And leading on from that, you you can always spot the first time an actor's put a sword and scabbard on, because they just go around knocking everything off. Like all the water's flying everywhere and things like that. It takes a while to get used to wearing a sword.
I think the fact that when you asked your question, everyone up here giggled was really the answer that we needed to that question.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hi, what is your name? Where are you from? And what is your question?
My name is Parsa. I'm from London. I just wanted to ask, when you guys are working with all the different houses, obviously there's a lot of different motifs when it comes to like the symbolism and the region where they're from. Regarding houses such as like the Velarayons, has there been any sea motifs, naval motifs that's been inspiring in designing those costumes specifically, or maybe even for the Ironborn or the Pirates and the Stepstones?
There's a lot of research goes into each house and the choosing of all the color palettes, and then I also try to think about the sort of aesthetics and textiles of each region as well, because if you think of our world, every region of the world has a different textile that they might be famous for, and that's something that I try to incorporate into that, but you'll have to watch to see how and which houses we establish.
Also, there's someone who's not here, is Alicia, who does the graphics, and she's got a team, and they're the guys who come up with the sigils, and they're a really important part of that process. So yeah.
That's really where it starts for us. As soon as we read that script, I pull out every house that we see, and I go to Alicia, who again is not here, and say, we need sigils for these, and I'm chasing, because it's so important, because Caroline needs her little bumper pack of colours and sigils, and because every house has a sigil, and you've got to stick to it.
Yeah, she's always getting hassle from everyone, just like, we need that sigil now.
I mean, if I could just ask it as well, it's just like, has there been any maybe more specific like naval or seafaring aspects?
Don't ask season 2. Don't ask about season 2.
It's not season 2. You got Velarayons.
Okay, don't ask about series 2.
Do you mean from the Velarayons?
The Velarayons.
The Velaryon sigil is a seahorse.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
No, I mean, it's just like, has there been other aspects that you incorporate into the design of the costumes, maybe?
I mean, I can talk about Corliss in specific, like his knife, which is I kind of wanted to go for some knives which are called ear daggers, and his in particular is like a shell on its pommel, and then on the top of that pommel is what I thought would be nice is, because he's like a seafarer, is to have an astrolabe, so he can navigate in his ship and use the stars and things. So again, it's one of those things you'll never see. But if you look on the top of the pommel, looking down, the ears kind of face up, and then they have the lines on them, sort of depicting stars and that sort of thing, and points. And then there's a rotating section on the top, which then he can use to line things up. Little things like that. It's just stuff that you never see, but it's a little hint of their sort of seafaring background. And I think there's a few things in the leather work. There's sort of wave feels, and I think in the armor as well, it's a lot of wave feel. So I think you always, when you're designing stuff, you always go, you go, for example, the seafaring, you just go, what have they seen? What have they seen throughout their life? And you put yourself in their shoes and you go, what would they need to get by and survive? And so, for example, the astrolabe on the top of a knife, I just thought was a nice idea.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Now, before you ask your question, I'm going to be a monster and let you know that this is going to be our last question of the panel. But before everybody gets really mad, we're going to take a big picture together as a group, so don't leave. Stick around for the end. We'll all stand close and take a picture. Last question, what is your name? Where are you from? And make this one a good question.
No pressure then. My name is Andrew. I'm from Hampshire. My question is if I'm allowed to ask about season 2.
You're not.
Okay, fine.
You can ask about the trailer.
Sure. I'll ask about season 1. What was the, I guess, biggest hindrance, obstacle, or challenge that you faced during that production process, and how did you resolve it?
You pulled your microphone up so fast.
I think I've got one for that. The biggest thing that I think I did on season 1, I don't think anybody would ever say that's an action prop. Like, it was so integral to the set and so worked on. So in the start of episode 8, there's a nest of eggs built into the set on the ground, but because of the way the action had to work on that and because there was action props inside in it, suddenly it fell to me to make sure all of that worked, even though it was integral to the set. It was important that it all worked well together, so it was a big undertaking. It was so important to the showrunners, and it was so important to Geeta to get everything perfect and timed really, really well. So it was like concepted, and then like a shell shape was made for it, and it had goo and gunk and a crust on top of it. And I can't tell you the amount of times we practiced tearing that open and how much like of the substance we went through to make sure that timing was right. And one of our propman, Neil, had to pretend to be Damon, like on the regular, to the point where he thinks that he's the stand-in now. I think he thinks he could do the job. And I think he could do it too. But it was the timing of like making sure that egg came out at the right time. We really wanted to get all 3 out, but because they wanted it to fit in before the credits and have it be like so perfect on Damon's face, we had to pick which egg we wanted the most because there was 3 inside in it. So that was, for me, like the biggest undertaking of season 1.
I think season 1 was difficult because we're starting from scratch. And there's so many characters, so many different people who just turn up for like 2 minutes and they've got like a fantastic sword and you're like, oh man, I've got to make another sword. It's like, so I think this show is just, it's so huge. And I think that was season 1, was trying to do that. Then season 2, you kind of build off season 1 and then, you know, the writers just keep expanding it and you've got more and more to make, which is fantastic. And that's why we love doing what we're doing. So I think, you know, season 1 was the sheer starting from scratch, I think.
Thank you very much.
And everybody else slayed and had no problems. Okay, nice lighting, people. Will you turn the lights on so that we can see everybody in the fancy picture that we're gonna take? Please, pretty please, with sugar on top.
Please.
Are we sure there's no time for like one more question?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Thanks for asking, though.
Thank you.
And if we want to stand up and squeeze close to the middle very politely, we're going to take a selfie together, friends. Will you come and take our photo? Yeah, I trust you. So we'll face